Happy first Tuesday of May.
How is it already halfway through the year? I'm Alex.
And I'm Amber. And this is another episode of True Crime and Chill.
Supernatural style.
Welcome to another episode.
Another year down.
That's right, because we passed our 1 year anniversary. Also, just a quick happiest of happy birthdays to my beautiful co-host, Alex. For those of you that don't know, she'll be 21 again on May the 6th.
21 again. I don't think I would ever want to relive my 21st year ever. Everybody's like, oh, I want to relive it. No. Because funny story is I graduated basic training 3 days for my 21st birthday.
That's right, you did.
The day of my 21st birthday, I was flying down to San Antonio for training, and I thought, oh my God, cool, it's gonna be the river walk and all that stuff. I get there, and they're like, hey, haha, you can't drink until you're out of training.
Yep.
So I didn't actually have my first drink until after I graduated AIT, like at the end of August, beginning of September. Yep. And so I'm like, I don't think I'd ever want to relive my 21st year again.
Honestly, if I had to relive a decade, I would relive my 30s, even though I haven't finished my 30s yet. I really enjoyed my 30s.
But can we just give it up for the fact that you don't look like you should be that late in your 30s? So.
Thanks. I am a lot closer to 40 than I'm comfortable with.
I know, it's really weird. I'm going to be 29 this year, so I'm like,
yeah.
What?
Yeah. No, you're turning 29 in just a couple of days.
Yeah. It's like that TikTok meme. It's creeping up on you.
That's right. So as a reminder to those who may have just recently discovered us, because I know we're getting new listeners all the time.
And we love you.
On the first Tuesday of the month, we like to cover a supernatural case of some kind. And a few months back, one of our awesome chillers recommended we start covering urban legends of each state. So we've been working our way through, and this month we're covering Arkansas.
Arkansas. To be honest, I really wasn't sure Amber would find anything because, Arkansas, when you think of it, it's like, ding, 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 ding.
Not always, but I did find something. And before we get into all of that, however, I do want to do a quick plug for ourselves and our Patreon. So I don't know if you guys know this or not, but we don't get paid to do this. We do this because it's fun. We enjoy it. We love talking about true crime. However, in order to potentially help cover the costs, we started a Patreon.
Yeah. So we did. Like she said, this is completely free. We do all the research on our own time. We do the recording on our own time. We pay for all of our own equipment. We do all this stuff. That's how it's been for the past year. And quite frankly, I'm okay with it. But a little bit of help would be nice. Mm-hmm. We do have a few things you can get for subscribing to our Patreon and helping us cover costs to bring our episodes to you, including shout-outs, case recommendations, some pretty sweet swag.
You can also support us by making a purchase of some kind in our true crime merchandise store on our website.
And because they're so popular now, because we have to wear them, masks.
That's right.
Yep. With a cool saying.
Yeah. And water bottles and sweatshirts and t-shirts and dog bandanas and phone cases. And they say fun things like, I'd rather be listening to true crime podcasts. I watch true crime documentaries with my cat.
Or, I know how to kill you with a shovel, so don't piss me off. No, I'm kidding. We don't have that in there yet.
But we can.
But we can. So, but both our Patreon and our little true crime fan swag shop can be found on our website, truecrimeandchill.com.
That being said, I am so excited to bring this month's story to you. As per usual, I was researching urban legends of Arkansas and thought I had a good one until it led me to an even better one. So when I started searching, I came across your standard haunted hotels, hitchhiking girl on the highway that disappears when you return her home, the Ozark Howler, which is a strange wild animal sometimes people hear and encounter, but none of them really stood out as something that was unique to Arkansas. A lot of them were kind of your same old urban legends that you find most places. And then I came across what's known as the Moss Mountain Farm Massacre. And while reading about it, I found there were multiple roads that kept leading me instead to the haunting of the Allen house in Monticello, which I discovered has been featured on a few TV shows and YouTube channels that we will have linked on our website, truecrimeandchill.com.
But here's the thing, Arkansas, are you okay? Because that's a lot of stuff. Like, are you okay? But the Allen house does sound cool from what Amber has told me about it.
And I often decide if I'm starting to get into a case or a story, it leads me to something else that maybe that something else is what I'm supposed to cover. Call it intuition, call it coincidence, whatever. But with how many things kept leading me to this particular haunted location, I decided this is what this month's supernatural episode should definitely be dedicated to. So let's talk about the Allen house, because sightings at this location are now so much a part of this house's legacy that daily ghost spotting tours are offered. It's been featured on many paranormal investigations, including The Ghost Hunters in 2013, and it's claimed to be the most haunted house in the state and sometimes in the United States. Based on evidence that was found by some of the investigators, I can't say I can dispute this claim, as every group that has gone through to research has found something, even if it's just EVPs. However, I was surprised when it didn't come up on its own when I was researching, like urban legends and Arkansas haunted locations. Instead, I found it through other means.
I mean, it's spooky that, like, it did, like, when you type in, like, oh, hey, haunted things in Arkansas, ghost stories in Arkansas,
Right.
legends in Arkansas, like, what makes this house so different? Like, I mean, besides every investigator has found something there, like, why wouldn't it obviously be, like, in, like, the first page of Google?
Right. Well, let's start by going back to the beginning. The Allen house was built in 1906. It's the kind of place that people say is haunted. Not like, oh, I hear it's haunted or it's supposed to be haunted, but rather it is haunted.
I mean, looking at it, like, I have a picture of it pulled up because I just want to see what it looked like. So when you described it, like, it definitely does kind of look like one of those houses that you would drive by and be like, yeah, that's some freaky stuff going on there.
There's actually a funny story about that I'll offshoot onto really quick. So when the current owners, the Spencers, moved to Monticello because Mark, the husband, got a job at a college there, his wife's stipulation was, we can move here if we live in that house. And so they had to track down the owner because the house wasn't for sale. And a lot of people were like, no, nobody wants to sell that house. And so they used to drive by that house all the time, and it was like falling apart. Well, it turns out when they finally got to see the inside, it was in fantastic shape. She was taking care of the inside on purpose and not the outside, because the spookier it was, the less that she was bothered, because people knew that this was a haunted house. So Girl Scouts didn't stop by there, traveling salesmen didn't stop by there, solicitors, nobody bothered her, and she liked it that way. So she kept the outside spooky and the inside nice.
I'm sorry, but this definitely sounds like the beginning of a horror movie where the white woman tells her husband, we must move into this house, fully knowing that it's haunted.
Right.
But it's like, whatever. Like, I mean, I'm sorry. Have you seen The Conjuring? Have you seen, like, any of these movies? Like, ma'am.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about this house, because the history of the house is actually really, really interesting. In the 1940s, the middle daughter of three daughters, her name was Ladell Allen Bonner, and she took poison and committed suicide in the master bedroom suite. Her mother, Caddy, sealed off the room as a memorial to her daughter. And when the room was opened up 37 years later, the poison was found on a closet shelf, as well as the dish from which Ladell ate her final meal. It's the first of many spirits, apparently, that continue to reside there. And from the 1950s until the 1980s, it was actually apartments. Like, people rented out the rooms in the house. And
except for that room.
Right, that room was blocked off. It was like if you see old pictures, that room was literally padlocked. Nobody could go into it. Right. So even when it was apartments, that room wasn't available because it was padlocked shut. The police were often called by the tenants of these apartments, as they were commonly convinced of intruders in the attic. The police always found absolutely nothing, of course, but the tenants came and went so quickly in that house because of all the experiences that they had. sounds, small items moving in an unexplained way. And one tenant had heavy furniture that got moved on him, like they were watching and the heavy furniture moved. And they decided that that day they'd had enough and moved out. There are even reports of ghostly figures appearing in photographs and doors being held shut, almost like in a playful manner.
So basically, normal ghost haunting things that would obviously make you not want to buy the house and live in it.
Right. Well, the current owners say it's like living with a family that you can't see. And
No!
they began having encounters even before they purchased the home. They would often, like I said, drive by and had to track down the owner in order to make the purchase. And the night before they had their first tour of the inside, Mark Spencer wrote a book, and it's called A Haunted Love Story. It's really good. I've been reading it. He says they pulled up to the house and looked at it, like for the millionth time. And in the window of the turret, they saw what they presumed to be the owner sitting near the window, and she looked to be like reading or writing. And they left because they thought, well, we don't want to bother her. We don't want her to suddenly change her mind and not let us see the inside so that we can, talk to her about buying it. When they finally did the tour of the house, the owner showed them that that room was used for storage, and there was no reasonable way for her to get into the room and sit by the window. That was their first experience.
No, see, after that, no, thank you.
Mark still was skeptical, and he even writes about it in the book. He said he was still skeptical even when he started having all these experience, including a doppelganger spirit during their move into the home. He says that as he was moving boxes in, he saw his 5-year-old son, Jacob, standing in the kitchen, and he looked really pale, and he was just kind of like staring off into nothing. And so he was kind of worried that maybe his son was sick or something was wrong. So he put down what he was carrying, and he asked a series of questions like, oh, do you like the new house? Like, what do you think? Is everything okay? And suddenly Jacob disappeared. Poof, into thin air.
Okay.
Disappeared. Oh, when Mark found him again, he was upstairs watching Star Wars, remembering nothing of the conversation and saying he wasn't down there.
Okay, so you want to know what takes the shape of children to make you trust them? Demons!
This is different because it's
evil spirits.
So this is a doppelganger spirit because this doppelganger also has done the image of Rebecca. So, but Mark has made a remarkable amount of discoveries in this home. The first project he took was in the carriage house or the garage. The carriage house was actually used to house the servants for a little while when the Allen house was first built. And when he was going through trying to start renovations, he pulled back a loose board on the wall and uncovered a marble tombstone just sitting there in a little alcove of the wall. And it memorialized a boy named Houston Meredith, who was born in 1895 and died in 1900. He was 5 years old, just like Jacob.
Nope. No, thank you. No. 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 I mean, man, I couldn't do it. No. Like, and the house was built in 1906, and the carriage house is 1907. So there's a tombstone that predates these buildings, which means that the building was built on top of the tombstone. They just didn't care.
Not necessarily. Actually, they, as far as I've read in the book, they haven't been able to really uncover what it is, but it's possible that the tombstone was moved by the servants. The land was
moved where? Like, moved from where?
Right. Well, the land was lived on prior to the building of the house itself. In fact, the first building that was there was the Rogers Female Academy, which was founded in 1857. And during the Civil War, classes were suspended, and the building was used as a hospital for Confederate soldiers.
Yes, because let's just throw in stuff about the Civil War, because that's definitely not a thing for. Okay.
Well,
okay.
Except none of the spirits seem to be from that era, at least not that I've read so far. What's most interesting, though, is that Mark took the time and ended up uncovering the answer to the ongoing mystery. See, no one can figure out why Ladell committed suicide at 54. Even the history of her suicide seemed murky.
So she wasn't a teenager?
No, she was 54.
Okay, because the way you described it, it made it seem like she was like a teenager, like late 20s.
No, so as as things went on, history seemed to sort of make the suicide kind of murky. The townspeople were arguing even about the type of poison that she took. Some even said that she hung herself, but her death certificate says mercury cyanide. But the real question is, why did she want to die? She grew up with means, and there's even a town in Arkansas named after her in 1912, Ladell, Arkansas. He didn't name that town after his oldest daughter or his youngest daughter or even his son, who died at only 9 months old.
But he named it after his daughter, who died at 54 from suicide.
Right. So Ladell is a ghost town now, mostly just remnants of
Oh, how ironic.
Right. Yeah. It's just remnants of a general store, post office, train depot, jail. But Ladell was divorced and her son died in 1944. And he was 24. He died of pneumonia. Ladell had divorced her husband in 1927. But on Christmas of 1948, she drank the poison during a Christmas party that her mother was throwing. And then she died on January 2nd of 1949.
I mean, the woman loses her kid. Her marriage ends. I can kind of see why she might be in that, like...
But it was years later. Like, it wasn't like it happened right after, right? I mean, she got divorced in 1927 and her son died in 1944. And then she committed suicide in 1948. What's interesting about it, though, is that she fixed herself a plate of hors d'oeuvres, grabbed a glass of wine, took it up to her room, and then after eating and drinking, she took the poison.
So she wanted to have a last meal.
Right. What's really intriguing about it, though, is that she chose to die at the same age her father was when he died, suddenly of what they think was a heart attack.
Okay. But, I mean, people are weird, okay? We do strange things. Like, so why did she really kill herself then?
The answer would come in a series of letters that Mark is convinced he was led to by a spirit in the home. He said that someone had told him to go look in a spot in the attic. Like, it was kind of one of those conversations he had with himself. Like, he was like, something was telling me to go up there. And I was like, I don't want to go up there. I'm going to get dirty and my allergies. Oh no, you're going to find something interesting. And so he was on his way and something said, you're going to need a flashlight. So he grabbed a flashlight and he went upstairs, and it's almost like there was this spot that he just was led towards. And it's a place he'd like stepped over the floorboards a lot of times. And when he looked down, he didn't see anything. He said, but he felt like what felt like a hand push him down to look again. And then he saw, well, I'm not going to be able to reach in. Like, there's something there, but I'm not going to be able to reach in. And it pushed him down again. And finally he pulled it out and he found a series of letters.
First off, the second I felt anything push me when I was alone in a room, I'd be getting the hell out of there. Right freaking quick. I'm sorry, but no. Again, seen too many horror movies to see how that ends.
Well, this is after he'd been in the house for like 2 years. So at this point, he'd come to terms with the fact that they're not alone in the house.
I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it to stay sane. I could not do it. The fact that they're still living in this damn house and there's still stuff going on, I could not do it. Okay. I already know what the letters were, but what were the letters?
It was correspondence from Ladell to her old boyfriend that she'd had when she was 19. He moved to Texas for work, and she ended up being courted by somebody else and married him instead. His name was Prentice Savage, and he had come to town on work and happened to run into Ladell in March of 1948. They began writing letters back and forth, and their old chemistry seemed to be renewed, despite Prentice being married.
Yes, let's just, I mean, to be fair, this was very common back then. It just wasn't talked about. But let me guess, she thought that he was going to leave he was going to leave his wife, and they were going to be together forever. And when they didn't, then obviously the only option left was to kill herself.
Long story short, she had a series of unhappy relationships, and when this one let her down, I think she ultimately felt heartbroken and ended her life.
What did she think was going to happen? He was going to leave his wife because she died?
He said he was going to make arrangements, and then didn't. After the current owners moved in, much of the town started knocking on the door of this house and asking if they could have a tour of the home. And of course, they were like, we live here. This is our house. I'm not giving you tours. Even the first week that they moved in, investigators and other specialists started to call and email asking about tours. The Spencer family are the fourth owners of this house, and the second owners apparently would occasionally open their home to investigators, psychics, and seances. The Spencers finally began opening their home to tours in efforts to help pay for the renovations in order to fix up the home to its former glory. The first night they allowed tours was Halloween, and it was the first Halloween that they spent in the house. The lady they purchased the house from said that they should hire security, and instead they sold tickets.
You know what this reminds me of?
Mm.
That mansion in California.
Oh, yeah, the Winchester house. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
That place is cool. If you ever get to go,
Which, by the way, that house is actually was what Stephen King's Rose Red is based off of. But yeah, that's what this reminds me of.
So originally, when they were,
hey, let's buy a haunted house. Let's sell some tickets.
So what happened though was kind of interesting because they originally were doing tours and they were trying to focus on the historical aspect of the home, like, look at all this great crown molding, look at all the really cool details in the in the ceiling and the painting and the original pieces. And of course it always were like people only just wanted to know about the ghosts, like that's all they really cared about. So
well, yeah, because I mean, let's be real here. As much as I would never live in a haunted house, if I got the opportunity to go visit a haunted house or like a haunted asylum, I'm not gonna be walking into that place looking at the crown molding. Like, no, I'm not going to be looking at the crown molding. I'm not going to be looking at how pretty the chandelier glistens in the sunlight. I'm not going to be looking at the stained glass windows. I want to know about the headless little boy that sits on the staircase. Like, well, give me the details.
That first Halloween, they sold 600 tickets. 600. They had people lined up around the block. In 2008, they had their first paranormal investigation done by LA Spirits, or it's a Louisiana branch of TAPS. And TAPS is, of course, famous for the show Ghost Hunters. The first night that LA Spirits tried to investigate, the Spencers all left the house because they knew that usually when they do those investigation shows, it makes sense for the people who live there to not be there. When both Rebecca and Mark were only 2 blocks away, the power of the entire house went out because a tree branch from a seemingly healthy tree fell onto power lines with such force it pulled the power box from the house.
They said, sorry, you're not leaving.
Yes, basically.
That's worrisome, though, because what happens if they actually try to sell the house and leave? Like,
I don't think that they want to. Like, they seem very content there, and they like it, actually. The investigators happen to have some battery-operated items that they used to do a smaller scale investigation, and they got some very clear EVPs. When the investigators came back, Rebecca and Mark stayed. During the full investigation, they caught 41 more EVPs and caught anomalies that were very hard to explain to any sort of scientific reasoning. Those were just the ones that were hard to explain. There were others above and beyond that. Ongoing ghost investigations continue to offer convincing evidence that it's not just Ladell Allen, but other spirits share the home as well. Another one is Ladell's son, Alan, who was known as the Duke, and he was a well-known prankster and jokester.
Okay, so that's the one who died of pneumonia back in 1944.
Yes, and he was also a writer and very much a comedian. Many of the pranks and jokes from the spirits are thought to be him.
So, fun fact about haunted houses. It's not always the spirits that have died or have any association with the house that are in there. It could be any numerous spirits, yes, including bad spirits that decide to latch onto the home and make it their home and stuff. So, like, that's another reason why I would never live in a haunted house. Like, has anyone seen, like, again, Stephen King's Rose Red? The Shining. Mm-hmm. Like, The Conjuring. I can go off. Right. I can go on and on about how many movies are made about haunted houses that are based on a true story.
Well, but those are still, they have some fabrication. That's why they're based on a true story. Like, Alex, I've had experiences here in my own home. So, there was a picture frame on my wall that moved like someone walked up and pushed it.
Yep. Nope.
I got all like Z-snap attitude, and I was like, oh, hell no, get the hell out of my house. I don't want you. You're not wanted here. And I haven't had a ton of experiences after that.
Sorry to your parents. They have to move.
See, they haven't had experiences. but I also, I mean, okay, depending on how supernatural you are, I'm an empath, right? So I walk into a room and I can feel the feelings of the room. Like when I'm with a person, I can tell what they're feeling. Like it's normal for me. It just is. And so, to wake up and have the shadow of a person standing at the foot of my bed and then watch it disappear and fade into thin air, and then the next
See,
morning,
I've slept at your house. How many times? Slept at your house how many times?
I
You're telling me there's some shadow people that have watched?
and then when I woke up that next morning, I tried to like recreate, because it was staying in my, at the time, what used to be my brother Chris's room. And I tried to figure out like if there was something shaped on the walls that I could have, in my sleepy state assumed was like a person, and there's no way. Like it was weird. So, it's like I've had experiences here, not quite on the same level as, I mean, these guys really, it's like they watch doors open and close and they're just like, "Are you done?" Like they share this home with spirits.
I mean, yeah, good for you if that's what you're into, man.
I mean, paranormal investigators continue to research the ongoings at the Allen house. Some of the findings, sightings, and recordings appear to be residual, but many of them appear to be full and complete hauntings full of awareness and consciousness. I mean, it's I've been other places, like I have been to Winchester House. I had no experiences there. I'm almost afraid to consider going here because it's like I know something would probably happen to me here. If you've ever been there and had an experience, please let us know. But the question is, would you go there knowing you probably would have an experience? Would you knowingly continue to live there, being aware that you aren't the only residents? Would you?
Thank you for listening to True Crime and Chill. For more information, including case notes, photos, and sources, please visit our website at truecrimeandchill.com. You can also stay connected with us on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Look for new episodes from us each week on Tuesday.